Hi class, I'm just going to show you a speech that will be a great example for your informative speech that's coming up. So a little bit of a background about the speech. You'll see that the speaker is an artist based out of New York and starts a new project or an experiment in which he records 1 second of his life every day. He video records it. And he tells us the need, why, when I talk about the private, why he felt the need to do this. And that's how he introduces us to this whole topic. And throughout his speech, he also tells us why it is important for the larger audience to do what he's doing. Okay. So he talks about some of his obstacles that he faced while doing this experiment, and you'll see what some of the obstacles were. And he talks about the insights that he gains through this experiment. This whole speech is about 8 minutes long, and it's about 3 more minutes than what you have. And I felt that this speech could have been done in 5 minutes. There were, in terms of organization, you'll see that, I would like you to watch the speech first, and then I can share my thoughts. I actually did this recording twice because I lost some internet connection, and I'm trying to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But 1 second here, I will play this for you again.
So I'm an artist. I live in New York, and I've been working in advertising ever since I left school, so about 7, 8 years now. And it was draining. I worked a lot of late nights. I worked a lot of weekends, and I found myself never having time for all the projects that I wanted to work on my own. And one day I was at work and I saw a talk by Stefan Sagmeister on TED. It was called The Power of Time Off. And he spoke about how every 7 years he takes a year off from work so he could do his own creative projects. And I was instantly inspired. And I just said, I have to do that. I have to take a year off. I need to take time to travel and spend time with my family and start my own creative ideas. So the first of those projects ended up being something I called 1 second every day. Basically, I'm recording 1 second of every day of my life for the rest of my life. Chronologically compiling these 1 second tiny slices of my life into one single continuous video until, I can't record them anymore. The purpose of this project is, one, I hate not remembering things that I've done in the past. There's all these things that I've done with my life that I have no recollection of, unless someone brings it up, and sometimes I think, oh yeah, that's something that I did. And something that I realized early on in the project was that if I wasn't doing anything interesting, I would probably forget to record the video. So the first time that I forgot, it really hurt me, because it's something that, I really wanted to, from the moment that I turned 30, I wanted to keep this project going until, forever. And having missed that 1 second, I realized it just kind of created this thing in my head where I never forgot ever again. So if I live to see 80 years of age, I'm going to have a 5-hour video that encapsulates 50 years of my life. When I turn 40, I'll have a 1-hour video that includes just my 30s. This has really invigorated me day to day when I wake up to try and do something interesting with my day. Now, one of the things that I have issues with is that as the days and weeks and months go by, time just seems to start blurring and blending into each other. And, I hated that. And visualization is the way to trigger memory.
things in
You know, this project for me is a way for me to bridge that gap and remember everything that I've done. Even just this 1 second that allows me to remember everything else that I did that one day. It's difficult sometimes to pick that 1 second. On a good day, I'll have maybe 3 or 4 seconds that I really want to choose, but I'll just have to narrow it down to one. But even narrowing it down to that one allows me to remember the other 3 anyway. It's also kind of a protest, personal protest against the culture we have now where people just are at concerts with their cell phones out, recording the whole concert, and they're disturbing you. They're not even enjoying the show. They're watching the concert through their cell phone. I hate that. I admittedly used to be that guy a little bit back in the day. And I've decided that the best way for me to still capture and keep a visual memory of my life and not be that person is to just record that 1 second that will allow me to trigger that memory of, yeah, that concert was amazing. I really loved that concert. And it just takes a quick second. I was on a 3-month road trip this summer. It was something that I've been dreaming about doing my whole life, just driving around the US and Canada and just figuring out where to go the next day. And it was kind of outstanding. I actually ran out. I spent too much money on my road trip for the savings that I had to take my year off. So I went to Seattle and I spent some time with friends working on a really neat project. One of the reasons that I took my year off was to spend more time with my family. And this really tragic thing happened where my sister-in-law, her intestines suddenly strangled one day. And we took her to the emergency room. And she was in really bad shape. We almost lost her a couple of times. And I was there with, my brother every day. And it helped me realize something else during this project is that, recording that 1 second on a really bad day is extremely difficult. It's not, we tend to take our cameras out when we're doing awesome things or this party, let me take a picture. But we rarely do that when we're having a bad day and something horrible is happening. And I found that it's actually been very, very important to record even just that 1 second of a really bad moment. It really helps you appreciate the good times. It's not always a good day. So when you have a bad one, I think it's important to remember it just as much as it is important to remember the bad days. Now, one of the things that I do is I don't use any filters. I don't use anything I try to capture the moment as much as possible as the way that I saw it with my own eyes. I started a rule of first-person perspective. Early on, I think I had a couple of videos where I would, you see me in it, but I realized that wasn't the way to go. The way to really remember what I saw was to record it as I actually saw it. Now, a couple of things that I have in my head about this project are, wouldn't it be interesting if thousands of people were doing this? I turned 31 last week, which is there. I think it would be interesting to see what everyone did with a project like this. I think everyone would have a different interpretation of it. I think everyone would benefit from just having that 1 second to remember every day. Personally, I'm tired of forgetting, and this is a really easy thing to do. I mean, we all have HD capable cameras in our pockets right now, most people in this room, I bet. And it's something that's, I never want to forget another day that I've ever lived, and this is my way of doing that. And it'd be really interesting also to see if you could just type in on a website like June 18th, 2018, and you would just see a stream of people's lives on that particular day from all over the world. And I don't know, I think this project has a lot of possibilities, and I encourage you all to record just a small snippet of your life every day so you can never forget it that day you lived. Thank you.
So you just watched the speech. I felt that the speech had a lot of things that could be improved in terms of organization. I think it was very, at some places, I did feel it was choppy. I felt that he was thinking his thoughts aloud and kind of interspersing his thoughts where he felt it was needed. This could have flowed well. At the end of the speech, where he actually asked the audience to use their phones to record 1 minute of their lives, I think that was persuasive. Not that he signed a contract about giving up, just having an informative speech. I'm just saying this because I wanted to give you an example of informative speech. I think the last part was persuasive because he's actually asking the audience to take an action. And I felt that, in informative speech, you could do without it. If he would just leave his speech at the insights that he has gained through his experiment, that in itself would have perhaps led the audience to think or consider the possibility of recording 1 second of their lives. If his idea was that strong and it resonated with the audience's needs, the audience would start recording 1 second of their lives, but it didn't have to be direct. So, this was an informative speech. So if you're planning to ask the audience to take an action, don't do it because this is an informative speech. You just need to leave that open-ended. When the audience hears your speech, they might start reading a book or they might start sleeping at the right time. But based on the information that you've given, based on the material that you've given them about sleep deprivation, based on you've talked about connecting with your near and dear ones and creating a social network, and they might just pick up the phone and start talking to people who they haven't spoken to for some time. But you are not going to ask them to do that. It should come through your speech. So that's informative speech. So I felt that the speech was choppy in terms of organization. It wasn't the best speech for me to talk, to show you, to learn how to organize a speech. But I think it was a great speech for me to show how this experiment was done, how he's able to situate himself within that experiment and within his personal need to remember things, and how he was able to take the personal, the private, and move it to the public. And he talks about this culture. He really doesn't talk a whole lot about what this culture does, but we know that this culture is the memory of this culture is very short-lived. We sometimes do not remember things that have happened in the past. We don't value every day of our lives. I felt that I could interpret it in so many ways that our culture could learn from this experiment. And he doesn't do it very, very directly at every time, but I think overall, I'm able to interpret it. He does mention it once or twice in his speech. And I like the way he talks about obstacles too. The fact that he talks about an incident when his sister-in-law got sick and it was difficult for him to record that day, because we, as a culture, we try to record on those days when we are feeling happy. We don't want to record those days when we feel sad, right? He talks about that obstacle that he faced, and he talks about how he was trying to film himself, and that really didn't cut it for him. He wanted to film just the way he thinks, and so it has to be he put the focus on something else that he was seeing, because that's the way he remembers. That's the second thing that he talked about as an obstacle, and how some of the obstacles that he faced every day wasn't great for him to record, and yet he had to record, right? So those were some of the things that he faced, and he told us how he worked around it. So I think this was a speech that you could look at and see how it was done. Again, this was not for me to show you or tell you that you got to follow this model and it's very prescriptive and you should be doing exactly this. No, I just wanted to share this with you. I think it was a powerful idea that he talked about, and executed it. So I think this could be helpful for you to open up your minds and see how open up your minds are already open, but even further and